Before I did my interviews and got an offer at BCG, I watched a really good video on their YouTube channel called Interviewing at BCG, so I thought it'd be really helpful for everyone watching if I watched it, reacted to it, and picked out the most important information from it. So let's get right into it.
So BCG was actually my first formal job interview because I was still a student in my second year at university.
You hear about the interviews and the cases. I thought it was going to be a bunch of mean, smiling, unhappy people grilling me about how many golf balls fit in an airplane.
That actually rings true for me, especially because I had the same opinion going in. I was really worried, about all these mean people grilling me, but actually everyone was super nice, so that really resonates with me in particular.
So I thought it was going to be me sparring with some senior partner about business issues that maybe I didn't fully understand.
The specifics of our interview process do vary by market and role. Your recruiters will keep you informed of the process that you're most likely to experience. For our consulting team, you're likely to experience a case-based interview. That typically starts with 10 to 15 minutes where we will explore your background and your experiences, and then 25 minutes where you'll work through a real-life problem with the interviewer in a case. And then, of course, we'll save a few minutes at the end if you have questions.
Yeah, so that was exactly what I experienced. The start of it is all about sort of them asking you questions about your experiences. Could be things like tell me a time where you showed great leadership skills, things like that. And then you have the case interview, the case study, and like they said, it can be actually a real life problem they've done, and they've just sort of simplified it to fit in 25 minutes, and then the Q&A at the end where you can ask them questions, which is a really important part.
Before you might receive an offer, you'll typically have at least 2 rounds of interviews. During that time, you'll meet a number of BCGers. Just as we're trying to get to know more about you, please take advantage of this opportunity, particularly in the Q&A section, to learn more about us.
Yeah, so like he says, don't undervalue the Q&A section. Make sure you've got some good questions. Yeah, I agree with that.
Research the firm and what we do on our website to try to understand what is the work like, what is it like to work at BCG or another consulting firm, what are the things that differentiate different consulting firms, just to make sure you understand what is it that you're interviewing.
Yeah, make sure you do a lot of research before you actually walk into that room. If you show them that you don't really know what you're applying to, then they're not going to hire you. So make sure you do lots of research.
Think about the stories that you want to share with the interviewer so that it will showcase you as a person and make the interviewer feel that you are the right candidate for BCG. And also run through your sort of like feed stories so that you get comfortable with the whole process. And when the time actually comes, right, you'll be very comfortable.
Coming from a medical background, I wasn't as comfortable as some others with the business concept. So I wasn't perhaps entirely sure of what's the difference between operating profit and net income. I didn't know what those things meant. So for me, a lot of it was about feeling comfortable with the terminology and also feeling comfortable speaking to other people in a business way.
Yeah, so this is really true. For me, I came from a maths background, so I do agree. I didn't have loads of business knowledge before preparing for case interviews, and they don't expect you to be really business savvy and know all about these terminologies, but they do expect you to know some of the key terminologies. So I would say that as long as you know the key ones, then it should be okay. You don't need to have studied business or something like that.
In terms of the case portion of the interview, we try to make it very conversational, but we'll expect the candidate to drive the discussion. Your interviewer will present you with a series of facts and some information, and we'll look to you to frame an approach for working through the case.
The case is something where practice will make you better at it.
You're not going to be able to anticipate what the case will be that's going to come your way. So don't try to memorize too many examples or too many industries. Really be in the moment in the interview.
Yeah, so what she is saying is really good. you don't want to memorize loads of different frameworks for, 50 different cases, because what you'll get in the interview should be completely unique and none really fit the mold. So you need to use ideas from different ones to create your own unique framework to solve the case. So that's why I always recommend just to learn, 4 frameworks, like 4 key frameworks for profitability, market entry, M&A, market sizing, and maybe a couple of generic ones. So yeah, don't, go crazy over the top with learning loads of frameworks. So yeah, just keep it to the really core ones and use ideas from them.
We're not looking for a textbook framework, but rather something that's specific to the facts of this case. We want to see you think. So engage the interviewer in a dialogue and ask for information when you need it. But ultimately, we want to see you drive towards a conclusion and synthesize a recommendation.
So one of the most common questions I get is, how many cases do I need to do to be prepared for the interview? My advice to that is do it to the extent that you're comfortable, that you enjoy solving the problem and you enjoy solving the problem with someone else in front of you.
Yeah, so for me, I probably did around maybe 15 practice cases before my interviews, and what he is saying, I really agree with the fact that as soon as you are doing too many that you stop enjoying it, that's when you've done, definitely too many, and you need to stop, because you need to truly enjoy what you're doing, because it will really, if you're not enjoying it in the interview, they'll be able to see that, and they won't, want to hire you if they do see that.
Now, the Q&A portion is really actually an opportunity for a candidate to show their intellectual curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions about the case interview that you've just gone through, about the business problem itself, or about things that actually it sparked in your mind about that particular industry, that particular client situation, or indeed about the interviewer themselves.
Use this interview as an opportunity to also evaluate whether the firm is the right fit for you and whether this is the firm that you could actually work at. Like, tell me one thing that has changed ever since you joined the firm, or you have seen changing over the years.
I have a family. I asked a little bit about what it's like having a family at BCG.
I was really interested in what is it that makes a good consultant, and if you were to hire me, what are the things you would be looking for me to do day 1, day 2, in 2 months, in 3 months?
Yeah, so one thing he said that I think is particularly true is that he said, I was really interested to see what it's really like to be a consultant and what a good consultant is made up of. And that's what I always tell people. You need to ask questions in the interview that truly interest you. Don't ask questions that people have told you that are, these are good questions. Ask the ones that you find really interesting and you want to know the answer to, because it'll come over very very genuinely.
So really, we're testing a few different things. The first is your past achievements, your ability to succeed in the face of adversity, your determination in some ways. The second part is really your absolute level of capability in calculation, but also in structuring, how to think through a problem that seems very diffuse and almost amorphous.
Yeah, so that's what a framework does. You're trying to break down a really complex business problem into, simpler parts which you can analyze individually. And that's something that you really need to be able to do to really impress your interviewer and get into a top consulting firm like BCG.
And make it into something that we can tackle in a structured way. And then the third part of it is, are you able to communicate well, to look someone in the eye, to listen and understand what someone is saying.
Background-wise, there is really no one definition of a consultant's background. I've hired PhDs, math majors, philosophers, lawyers. I'm looking for a passion for discovery, someone who really enjoys problem solving.
We do look for people who can work well on teams.
Yeah, so that's really true in the fact that consulting firms don't just look for business degrees or specific degrees. They want a variety of people that come from different backgrounds that can solve a different variety of problems. So don't feel like you can't get into consulting if you've done maybe history or something. You definitely can, as long as, like she said, you really enjoy problem solving and things like that. Then you've got as good a chance of anyone.
You don't necessarily need to be a leader and have a big leadership role to be successful at BCG. We look for people who can contribute to teams in all sorts of different ways.
The typical feedback that you might get from those discussions between one round to the next will be either things that we didn't see or things that we do feel you need to improve upon to make sure that you progress successfully to an offer eventually.
Most candidates like that, and they get a lot of input out of it. Most of the time, my feedback is linked to the specifics of the interview. So I like to quote examples of points in the interview to say, hey, when you were summarizing, for example, you could have done this and this differently.
Yeah, so you do get feedback between your first round, your second round of interviews. If you get past that first round, actually, even if you don't, they will still give you feedback of what they want you to improve on. And for me, you know, that really helped. And everything they said was, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, I implemented that, and, you know, luckily that led to an offer. So it is really helpful that they give you feedback. So I really like that.
At the point when the partners were trying to figure out my future platform at BCG, I then figured out that, okay, the leaders here were really committed and invested in my future at BCG, even though at that point of time I wasn't extended an offer.
Felt like the people who I met were really interested in me, what made me unique and what I could bring to the firm. And I felt like my contributions would be valued from day one.
There were people that were, first of all, interested in me, and people that were interested in not just having a kind of a positive impact in business, but also having a positive impact in other spheres. And that's how I knew that BCG is the place I wanted to come to.
Yeah, really nice video. In terms of when I realised that BCG was the right fit for me, was just when I met loads of people and they were super nice. That's the one thing I was just blown away by. I was expecting maybe, you know, some people, you know, in the business world to be quite sort of mean and patronising, but everyone was super nice, super supportive. So that's what really rang true for me. And yeah, I think this is a great video to watch. And you know, if you're here, you have. So yeah, take out, you know, lots of good things from this video, and especially the things I specifically mentioned. So yeah, if you've got any questions, then let me know in the comments. But for now, I wish you all the very best of luck with your consulting applications and consulting careers.